Today we're going to be working on this FZ750. Had this bike for a while actually, and it's just been sitting, but I've been wanting to get around to this bike for a long time. I have a couple of mods that I want to do to it, but really what this bike needs is more than likely it's going to need a valve adjustment. These bikes are a pain to do the valves on just because it is a 20 valve head. So all I've done to it is throw new tires on it. One thing about these old street bikes is the tires are super skinny. And I mean, this is a quick bike. This is like, I think 110 horsepower. So when this thing was new, this was super quick. And even by modern day standards, it's a pretty fast bike. Also, the garage is so nicely lit now. I've got lights everywhere. I hung a light from the wall over there. I've got one up on the loft over there. I've got one at my tool bench now. So there's way more light in here, which just makes it way more easier to work. Okay, so I got the motorcycle tank off of the bike. Draining currently. This will give me access to the air box here. And while I'm in here, I may as well take a look at all the carbs. But everything looks pretty good down here. I mean, aesthetically, this bike was in rough shape, but you know, it doesn't seem like there's anything major. And then, yeah, I think I might be able to do the valves without pulling the motor. But if not, I haven't really worked on sport bikes before, but I have worked on a Gixxer, and I remember I just had to like unbolt the subframe and the motor dropped out pretty easily. I think there was like one mount at the top or something. But yeah, we'll see. So literally listening to the gasoline drain from the tank makes me have to piss. So I'm gonna go take a piss. So here are the carburetors. I am kind of concerned because the airbox was not fastened onto the carbs whatsoever. So like, yeah, that's odd. I'm gonna try and figure out what the deal is there. I'm guessing these little boots here just, you know, weren't seated properly. I feel like these are supposed to be more pliable than they are. They're probably all dried out, but regardless, this gives us a good look at the carbs. This choke button I was concerned about because the head is missing, but I have sprayed some lubricant down here and it's a lot easier to move now. Yeah, there we go. Got the valve cover off and can tell you right now that valve cover gasket is pretty gnarly. But here we have the valves. I'm thinking I'm going to take these carbs off. I'm assuming we rotate the crank down here, somewhere behind this little gold cover, and then that will allow us to get our cam lobes in position so that we can check our clearances. I'm gonna be so for real with you guys right now. I have never done a valve lash adjustment. My Golf has hydraulic lifters and most of my other vehicles have a two-stroke. Including my car now is a two-stroke. I wish I could say I got these all out without stripping them. But obviously, I had to Dremel a few of these guys out. These aren't Phillips heads. They're Japanese standard, I believe is what it's called, or JIS or something. And it's a little bit different from a Phillips, I think. But regardless, it was a bit of a pain, but I got the carbs off. And the great news is these boots look pretty good. I think all I have to do to salvage these hose clamps is to find some new hardware for the ones that I had to Dremel apart. Carbs are officially off and over there. And then I've got the intake ports all blocked off. Air box is off. And unfortunately, I noticed on the bottom of the air box, just because this is, you know, super old Japanese plastic, this little outlet is cracked. And I don't even know what happened to that one. But I am going to put these carbs inside. I don't want them getting dirty. It was around this time that I decided to pull the engine. There was no way I was going to be able to get this all done on my own. I didn't want to risk fucking anything up on such an old motor. So here I'm just going over the wires before I unplug everything. There are so many little spots of, you know, rust and oil on the frame. I think like here is pretty gnarly, and here. And then of course down here, there's some spots, you know, that could use some tidying up. These are pretty crusty as well, but nothing major. So I'm gonna try and use this gray rust converter on it. I've wiped a substantial amount of grease off of the frame just while we're here. And I've taken the swing arm linkage, or shock linkage I should say, off. This shock is gonna get replaced. So I'm gonna take the engine in to get the valves adjusted. It's easy enough for me to drop it here in the garage, which saves me a huge portion of the labor costs. I decided that I'm just going to use some Rust-Oleum to clean up the frame. So I hit it with some self-etching primer first after cleaning up the rust. I also ended up using that little tin of rust converter. So I mean, it looks a whole lot better than it did. I kind of did like a lazy masking job and just used some brake cleaner to clean off the overspray. But I'm going to be shooting more content with the FZ, but I'm waiting on valve shims for it. As you can see, it's 7 millimeters in diameter. They're recessed at the top here. So we have a 185 and we're waiting on a 155 currently. All of the other valves have been adjusted except for two. Michaela and I are in the garage. She's over there. We're gonna work on the FC for a little bit. I got this hood pin done. I still have to do the other one. And then I got these American racing wheels for the back. I think having like a hybrid JDM up front, American wheel in the back is kind of cool in a way. And it's just the most cost-effective way to get the correct offset wheel on my car. So we need to do a little bit of cutting on the hood of the RX-7 here. Here's some stock footage of cows, and the rest of this video will kind of transition to something different. Jesus Christ. These bumps are insane. We ended up getting beverages and nourishment on our travels.
Fuck Starbucks.
Yeah, we're supposed to be boycotting Starbucks, but we're out here and got hungry. Also, look at this fucking Chrysler. Sebring, I think it's called. Very, very yummy.
Whatever, I'm just gonna embrace it.
There you go, Indian motorcycle. So I've had a little bit of time to think about what I saw at the dealership and kind of consider where my head's at in terms of potentially getting another motorcycle. I don't know if I've talked about this in previous videos, but I just got rid of 8 bikes. Well, going on 8. Once I sell the FZ, that'll make it 8 bikes officially that I've sold just in, I think, the past year. I do really love to work on motorcycles. I mean, compared to cars, it's a lot easier. They're a lot smaller. A lot more enjoyable personally for me to work on bikes. I grew up riding dirt bikes, and as much as a lot of the street bikes I saw were cool, I'm kind of thinking maybe looking for like a secondhand DR650 would be cooler. I don't want to get a new bike. I think that's not financially smart. If somebody came along and wanted to buy me a new bike, I would say for sure, but financially it doesn't make any sense. I know how to work on motorcycles. I know what to look for, so I might as well let somebody else absorb that initial depreciation